And now, Owen Oliver with Nikki Pitre from the Aspen Institute's Center for Native American Youth.
Son. Chief Seattle once said, "Will you teach your children what we have taught our children? That the earth is our mother. What befalls on the earth befalls on all the sons of the earth. This we know. The earth does not belong to the man belongs to the earth. All things are connected like the blood that unites us all."
From the moment my daughter's feet touched the earth, her father and I knew we had a responsibility to ensure that she knew her role as a steward of the land and water. Today, when she approaches the water, she says, "Lim lenchsikwe," thank you, water. When she sees mountains, she greets them as she knows that they are her grandfathers. At 5 years old, she understands that we are all connected like the blood that unites us all. However, that connection is at risk because our earth is changing. As a mother, as a future ancestor, I worry that the stories that were passed on to us will be forced to change in my daughter's generation because of climate change. As Native people, our relationship with the land is integral to our social, cultural, and spiritual identity. It is part of our livelihood, and unfortunately, that livelihood is being negatively impacted by climate change. We have seen how climate change is altering our relationship between our animal and land relatives. It is also altering our relationships we have within our own communities and our people. You see, these relationships are central to our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Climate change impacts our ability to share traditional knowledge about our natural environment, food systems, ceremony, and more. In short, climate change will result in the loss to knowledge, increase food insecurity, and exacerbate health disparities that already exist within our tribal communities. My people, the Shtitsu'umsh, have called the Pacific Northwest home since time immemorial, and we are so rich. We have bountiful salmon, traditional medicines, berries, roots, elk, buffalo, eagles. We are rich in balance and in harmony. And we are surrounded by a powerful healing medicine, the kwai, salk, the cedar trees. And to the west, we have the Salish Sea, our sacred salmon relatives, countless tribal nations. In this place, I learned the importance of healing our mother and healing our community. When a kwai salk is sick or damaged, the surrounding cedar trees will wrap its roots around the damaged one. The healthy kwai salk will move its nutrients out of itself, depleting itself, until the damaged kwai salk is well enough to support itself again. It is then that the healthy trees will unwrap their roots and untangle the roots, and all will stand strong together. It is in this lesson that we learn the responsibility of healing our people, our relatives, and our earth. I imagine all of us as kwai salk, as it will take all of us to come together, wrap our roots around our mother, and heal. I invite you to reflect on a time that you have been supported or received support from someone or something in order to heal. Stamelguinis, my relatives, when we talk about climate solutions, we are talking about healing. Healing culture, healing community, healing ourselves, healing our world. A cultural teaching that we have is in order for healing and transformation, we must have a space down to lay down our truth. And here is ours. Too often, the conversation and investment in climate solutions leaves out Indigenous voices, the voices that have been the Earth's strongest advocates since time immemorial. Here's why Indigenous voices matter. Indigenous people are the original stewards of this land and keepers of traditional ecological knowledge. And although we comprise of less than 5% of the world's population, we protect 80% of the Earth's biodiversity in forests, deserts, grasslands, and marine environments. In the United States alone, tribal trust land provides homes for
more than 525 endangered species,
more than 13,000 rivers,
and nearly 100,000 lakes,
Finally, many Indigenous communities are on the front lines of climate change, facing this harsh reality, a reality that many non-tribal communities will soon face unless we act fast. As we all face this hard truth of climate change, Indigenous voices are finally being elevated. The Secretary of Interior, the person responsible for protecting our natural resources and carrying out the trust responsibilities to Indigenous people and nations, is a citizen of the Pueblo of Laguna. Secretary Holland states, "Certainly, in this time of climate change bearing down upon us, Indigenous knowledge about our natural world will be extremely valuable and important to us all. Indian tribes have been on this continent for millennia. They know how to care for the land. That knowledge has been passed down from generations and generations." We've also seen this administration commit to elevating Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge in federal scientific and policy processes and drastically increase funding for the Tribal Climate Resilience Program. I'm further encouraged by strong voices of Native youth, and I'm so honored to share this stage with my young relative and one of the Earth's strongest advocates, Owen Oliver. Today, Owen and I are going to talk about how to center Indigenous solutions as a means of wrapping our roots together to heal. It is our hope that after this talk, you will feel a sense of responsibility to reckon with our truth and commit to healing through Indigenous methodologies.
I come from the people of the lower Columbia River, the Salish Sea, and the southwest pueblos of Isleta. This is a sentence that states my ancestry through hundreds of generations that have learned from the land from each other, and each developed their own ways to display knowledge systems through art and traditions. However, to the federal government, I am an enrolled Quinault tribal member whose lands are on the west coast of Washington. This morning, as I greeted the Atlantic Ocean, I think of the response that the Pacific Ocean will say when I greet it back later this summer. What will I take back? What will I learn here? And how will my knowledge systems differ? When I reflect back on what's guided me here today, I envision a 36-foot-long canoe traversing the Columbia River and exiting the opening of the Pacific Ocean. I envision gripping my cedar paddle and imprinting the grooves of wood that has already been calloused over on previous journeys. I envision myself greeting the host tribe and stating my intentions and relationships that have been built over and over in the same way I'm introducing myself here. I envision a future where my descendants can envision those same things that we face today. The canoe culture in the Pacific Northwest has been revitalized through the elders that barely grew up with them. Before canoes were launched in 1989 at the Paddle of Seattle, those knowledge systems were locked away for over 60 years. They endured boarding schools, assimilation, and relocation. Yet my whole life, I've had the privilege to grow up around them and be the new generation that didn't have a gap with traditional canoes. Something that I have to reconcile with that my ancestors did not is the rapid effects of climate change on my people and relatives. In Quinault territory, we're wrestling with the continuous increasing rise in sea level and the looming threats of tsunamis. The Quinault Tribal Council has been planning and creating a task force to relocate the village upland to save our most vulnerable population, our elders. Through the $60 million project, we will again have to move away from our traditional beaches, tide flats, and shorelines that have been connected with us through the canoe. Climate change doesn't stop here, though. Our lakes and rivers that have provided home grounds for salmon are threatened. The Anderson Glacier that feeds the Quinault River from the Olympic Mountains has retreated to the size of a few ice cubes. This means less water is being replenished to feed and cool the river. There was a story in 2005 that said the Quinault River was so incredibly low that a tribal member could walk across the newly exposed river. A tribal member did begin to walk across that river, and he stubbed his toe on a mastodon jaw that was submerged 12,000 years ago during the last ice age. We are beginning to unearth the harsh realities that climate change poses to all of us, how food systems are being exhausted and our shorelines eroding, and our landscapes that held stories for us are changing with the extreme weather. I see the change in the landscape each time I enter back into the canoe as we paddle across similar lands. The mountains look shaved from clear cutting, shorelines have become closer and closer to the tree lines, and our stories begin to change. Those key images that our ancestors told us orally begin to unfold like a giant game of telephone, where once they talked about a mountain that fed their village with water is now just a snowless mound. Soon that story will be lost because our stories required us to witness the land and listen from it. There's no winner in the game of telephone, just a loser who says, "Why didn't anyone listen to me?" I want you to listen. I want you to remember this. I want you to know that I plan on building a future where my descendants can acknowledge our difficult history with climate change, but can continue to move forward and keep climate change at bay because we provided them the tools they need.
The shining water that moves in streams and rivers is not just water, but the blood of our ancestors. If we sell you this land, we must remember that it is sacred, and that each ghostly reflection on the clear water of the lakes tells of events and memories in the life of my people. The water's murmur is a voice of our grandfathers, Chief Seattle. I grew up seeing pictures of my Tsuutsuuten, my ancestors, and the way that they used to hunt and provide for the community. There's a picture of warriors out on our lake, our Chak'ele, in a sturgeon canoe. They're drawing back a bow and arrow on our waterways, and they're hunting elk who are grazing on the land. Nearly 25 years ago, my tribe, the Coeur d'Alene, was in a fight to reclaim our land and our lake, to heal our Sikwe, our Chak'ele, because of the impacts of climate change and man-made disruption of Lake Coeur d'Alene, which caused toxins such as uranium, silver, and other contaminants, and nearly depleted our traditional plants and wildlife. It was forgotten that our Sikwe was sacred. Our Sikwe was sick, and we had a collective responsibility as the first stewards of this land to wrap our roots around it and heal it. In the case Idaho versus the Coeur d'Alene tribe in 1997, my tribe won back 2/3 of Lake Coeur d'Alene. And through tribally chartered natural resources, we are restoring wildlife, reintroducing trout and other fish back into the lake. We are bringing back traditional plants in hopes that the wildlife will have their food and balance will be restored. And though my tribe only owns 2/3 of the lake through the United States Supreme Court ruling, we are responsible for 100% of the healing and restoration and reversing the impacts of climate change. We do this because we have a collective responsibility, a relationship that we have to our sacred places. As Chief Seattle said, we recognize the Sikwe is the blood of our ancestors. I know it is possible in my lifetime to see my daughter and her generation hunt and be on the water like that picture of our Tsuutsuuten. Our youth deserve to hear the voices of our grandpas in sacred waterways.
Nikki and I both graduated from the University of Washington with degrees in American Indian Studies. We are here today because of the strengths that we were able to lean into Indigenous communities on and off campus. The American Indian Studies Department felt like a safe home always to call back to. It brought us healing when we needed it the most and always pushed us to innovate our community's ways of thinking. When I graduated from the University of Washington, I wanted to reflect on my time as a Coast Salish person. I wanted to catalog and promote Indigenous arts across campus. While researching indigeneity on campus, I discovered a Yakima story depicted on a mural that's resonated with me since. The Ayayesh girl is sitting next to grandmother cedar tree after being sent away from her tribe for not knowing anything. She sits and listens to the task that cedar asks of her. Slowly but surely, Grandmother Cedar Tree teaches her how to weave a basket and recognize the designs in the world to incorporate them into her basket. The symbols of rattlesnakes slither across the top, and mountains are reflected in the base. With a proud grasp of the basket, she dunks it into a nearby stream to test if her work will hold water. Unsuccessful with her first rendition, her third and final basket achieves the skill of holding water. The girl goes back to her village to show off what she's accomplished. At first, her community doesn't believe her, but as the girl tells her own story, shows off the watertight basket and the complexity of the design, the doubt, shame, and name Ayayesh are taken off of the girl. She isn't shunned as a less intelligent child, but welcomed as a source of knowledge. Her dreams of not being the Ayayesh girl is realized in the land, and she's transformed through telling her own story. The story of the Ayayesh girl is about learning and witnessing from the land. We can see the land as a relationship and a teacher rather than a resource we have to extract from. When I tell this story, I'm often reminded of a rule I learned as a kid in the canoe. The rule states, "The gift of each enriches us all." It explains that everyone has something to learn from each other and everyone has a gift to share. Yet we need to understand, in order to listen to people, you need to be a responsible witness that actively listens and engages. By believing Indigenous people's stories and their experiences, you are giving justice to their knowledge systems that have been curated since time immemorial. It's going to be these knowledge systems that help accelerate our fight on climate change, because without them, we are just a canoe with no paddles.
When discussing Indigenous solutions, we need to start looking at a big picture, a holistic vision, because everything is interconnected. Do not get lost in singular issues. Man did not weave the web of life, he is merely one strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. Chief Seattle.
We must stop looking at our land, water, and air as extractive and view it as our relatives, our grandfathers, our brothers. When we start thinking about climate as a relative, we'll inherently care for it and treat it differently. Only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught, we will realize we cannot eat money. Chief Seattle.
When we all recognize our role in settler colonialism, we can start to decolonize the way that we are in relationship with Mother Earth. We will gain a new respect and balance of healing our relatives before we lose it all in climate change. Everything on Earth has purpose, every disease an herb to cure it, and every person a mission. This is the Indian theory of existence. Morning Dove.
There is truth in culture. Uplift and validate Indigenous ways of knowing. There is true science in the past, the present, and the future. Traditional teachings show us that we must shift from a reactive approach to climate work to be proactive. It's learning alongside climate leadership and coming as a collective to heal.
Currently, Indigenous-led organizations receive 0.4% of the philanthropic dollar. Invest in us, invest in our voices, invest in our solutions, invest in our healing. When the blood in your veins returns to the sea and the earth in your bones returns to the ground, perhaps you will remember that this land does not belong to you. It is you who belongs to the land.